further, building a continent where we keep on lending from, countries like China and America. And then we will not be shocked when we see issues like America, where China tells us that you do A, and if you don't want to do A, these are the sanctions that are coupled with you refusing to do whatever we're giving you as a mandate from the country itself. So China is posing a threat to the independence of the continent itself, simply because as much as it's an economic investment, as the president, for example, South Africa has put that we shouldn't be worried, it's just an issue of the economic investment. But we also know that these have ripple effects on the social aspects of the country and the continent itself. When China has built a bridge in some African countries, it basically means that they also want to have the say, in even like the political aspects and the political opinions of the government within those countries themselves. So we face a situation where we are moving away. We're trying to fight for an independent continent, but at the same time we are moving away from that idea, because the more countries like China come and bail us out. I mean, in South Africa, the investments from China also helped with getting us out of the recession. And the question will be, will South Africa have the guts to say no to China, in the event that they impose a policy or any other agreement for that matter that South Africa is not necessarily accepting? So we face a situation where then, independence of countries within Africa and the continent is then threatened by investments from countries like China.
All right, guys, let's take ad breaks, and then when we come back, we continue. Utadisha, the same question is still on you as to how much hold does France, the US, and China have on the independence of Africa. Let's take a short break. You're listening to One Nation FM. You listen to the Roberts View on One Nation FM on 88.9 FM.
City Hawkers, your one-stop shop for office and back-to-school stationery. We stock all the major brands like Stapler, Pritt and Typek. We also have the largest range of school bags, backpacks and luggage cases. City Hawkers, your one-stop shopping destination. Calling all schools. Purchase your bulk stationery from us at the lowest prices in town. We're also now stocking trophies and medals. City Hawkers, 107 Boehm Street, Polokwane.
These days, I'm more health conscious than ever. So tonight, it's stir fry for dinner. Cooked in healthy Helios pure sunflower cooking oil. Helios is pure sunflower goodness, packed with omega-6. That's good for your heart. And is approved as part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation eating plan. Dinner's ready! Helios, pure sunflower cooking oil. A healthy family is a happy one.
88.9 FM. Welcome to the People's Station. One Nation FM.
All right, if you just tuned in, the time is just 70 minutes after 6 o'clock. Okay, Tadishe, I see a comment now on Twitter, and somebody was speaking on the independence of Africa, and somebody says the West has a history of imposing economic policies on African countries, but the East hasn't. So in this instance, China hasn't. Even though China has made massive loans, China hasn't really imposed anything. I mean, of course, there have been reports that then China demands certain institutions of that particular country that they've loaned, which can't pay back. The question still stands: how much hold do these externalities have in terms on the independence of Africa, or Africa's ability to think independently?
Yeah, sure, Isaac. I mean, to look at whether or not a foreign country or another country has a hold on Africa, we have to look at the key economic, sectors. That is energy, that is monetary, that is the financial sector, that is communication, as well as other, that is also the sectors that affect food security in a country. So I don't believe China does actually have that much power as much as, everybody else would suggest. In fact, I don't think China has tried to impose their way of doing things to us, on us. So what we have to also understand is that unlike the United States of America and France, which have so much control on the IMF, it's very important that during the apartheid, it's very important that I bring this example in place. That during apartheid, there was a repayment of around $25 billion apartheid era, foreign debt, which I believe has denied Mandela money to pay the basic needs of apartheid victims. I mean, if you also look at giving the South African Reserve Bank formal independence by people who also have so much control over the American central banks as well as the France central bank, which in my view resulted in an installation of a central bank official from democratic accountability, which I believe, in my view, has led to high interest rates and a deregulation of exchange control. I mean, at the same time, we must also look at how much sometimes we might need international aid or borrowing. I mean, not long ago, we borrowed about $850 million from the International Monetary Fund. I think that was in December 1993, which imposed tough conditions, such as which has, in my view, has persisted for years, which included rapid scrapping of import surcharges and which, in my view, has protected local industries. Spending cuts, lower production sector costs, and then what we should also be afraid of is the lowering of salaries and decrease in wages across the board. So there is so much hold on the African continent, but I feel like what we should be focusing on is strengthening our institutions, such as the law institutions, as well as the parliament, the state institutions, so that we can be able to respond and accommodate these particular international market forces. But at the same time, it's very important to put into context what we are talking about in terms of influence. In my view, I don't think China is that influential in South Africa or is trying to maneuver its way in Africa. While I can't say the same about the West.
All right. Just to move on, we're still speaking about Africa's abilities here to function independently and to work alone as Africa. So somebody who's listening and doesn't understand, Sibs, how do you explain, or how do international economic sanctions operate?
Like in layman's terms, basically how international sanctions operate. And I think my colleague made a very good example, with apartheid in South Africa, for example, where there's, they can work. These can be sanctions by international organizations, on a specific country or by other countries. For example, in the case of South Africa, we saw that during apartheid, South Africa was sanctioned by many countries when these countries, refused, to trade with South Africa, for example, or even give aid to South Africa, simply because South Africa had, oppressive laws that excluded, the majority of South Africans, which are black South Africans. So that's basically how sanctions can work. Or even in the example of South Africa and America, we saw that America said, if you don't do, if you don't accept this shit in South Africa, these are the consequences that we have. So it's basically acting as punishment to a country for not acting, in a certain way, or for not abiding by a certain rule or, policy that is required by international organizations like the UN, for example, which is basically less likely because the UN never really sanctions countries, but it basically, encourages other countries to put sanctions on countries. So that's basically just how they work. They just basically work as forms of punishment on countries for not adhering to certain, rules or regulations.
Just to close, Tadishe, what advice would you give, to countries outside different blocks? So we know that SACU, SADC were fine, right? There's free movement between members of these particular countries. In SACU, the rand is the one you can buy with the rand anywhere you go in any of this membership. But what advice can you make or can you give countries from different blocks?
Simple. Strengthen your state institutions. I mean, these are the biggest institutions that play a big role in terms of protecting local industries. Create pro-local policies that will, protect local industries as well. So this is the most biggest thing that I feel each and every country can, work best on. Improve institutions such as the judiciary so that we can lessen corruption, improve skill sets in any country, which is, I believe, is what we need, improve security, attract more technological investment, and secure, food, make sure that there's the best development of food security in a country. So those are the near systems. I mean, if you have best institutions, you therefore have international companies that are going to oblige by the law. You're going to have international companies that are going to think first up before they actually, crush local industries. You're going to prevent monopolies. You're going to prevent collision as well as oligopolies. So it's very important that even the countries in Africa invest in small, medium-sized enterprises, boost local industry, provide subsidies, as most of all employment subsidies when companies hire local people. What they should do is empower local industries and empower local companies and put them on a competitive stage with international companies. Because we are moving in a world where globalization, in my view, has seemed to be the only way to go. We've seen how the telecommunications sector has, driven the development in terms of economies. We've seen how technology in general has driven, the development in developing countries. So it's very important that we create strong institutions, strong policies, as well as best implementation plans, as well as, and that's it. That's all we need. We need strong institutions, strong policies, and then we're all good to go.
Right, guys. We have run out of time, but I've learned a lot. I keep quiet and I listen to you guys, and I think the listeners and those who are watching on Twitter, and I see a lot of inputs here. I think people are happy with what you have delivered tonight, and please be available every time. I've got lots of conversations that I believe young people should start having, right? So away from the lifestyle entertainment conversations, I think that current affairs has a place on young people's minds. So we don't have older people discussing it, but the young people like you guys joining in and having the conversation. So I'm thankful for your inputs tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Thank you for having us.
All right, cheers. Okay, it's been a very great show. Thanks to the guys. Thanks to Tadishe, Mashiro. Thanks to Usibaba Lomtonga. Just in conclusion with this particular topic, Africa can do that, but of course, politics, geopolitics, really plays a major role in how Africa does things. And I think the conversation around sanctions, we need to stretch it a bit. We need to have a soul show where we discuss about sanctions alone. So we can explore all these conversations. Young people, we can still discuss current affairs. I mean, current affairs is not an alien thing. We're not just only about entertainment. We've got bright minds that can deal with this particular topics. Just to close over the show, I see two things now currently trending on social media, and I assume that's pretty much what it's been driven by media houses. Jenny Dordan comes up and says South Africa is a good plan B for AFCON 2019, and then he says we're ready to host the Women's World Cup. On the latter, I'm fully supportive. You should bid to host the Women's World Cup. We did it with the men and we did it beautifully. But when you're going to host the Women's World Cup, you should then make women's football popular in the country. We should not, it should be enjoyable. Women, you should support your own product. So it's not just about men funding, but women should also come to the stadium and support. On AFCON, SAFA does not understand that Bafana Bafana has lost support, has lost its integrity and its image. And hosting this AFCON would not do any benefit to the South African team, right? Because people will always see the team as a backdoor team. And how do you expect people to perform at a team that has a negative connotation and label around it, right? It doesn't make any sense. I don't think SAFA actually cares about what people think about South Africa, right? Like